I never planned to stop that night. I was supposed to go straight home after the charity event in downtown Los Angeles, smile for a few photos, shake hands with donors, and then disappear behind tinted windows like I always did. My life had become a sequence of scheduled moments, controlled, filtered, predictable. But fate doesn't ask permission before rearranging your plans. We were driving through a part of the city I rarely visited anymore. It was the kind of block you see only from a distance. Graffiti, boarded-up windows, a liquor store with a buzzing neon sign, a sidewalk lined with people the world had stopped looking at. My driver slowed at a red light, and that's when I saw him. A boy. Maybe 12, maybe 13. Too young to be out there alone at night. He sat on the concrete with his knees pulled to his chest, hugging a faded blue backpack like it was the last piece of home he had left. His hair was messy, his clothes were torn, but what caught me wasn't any of that. It was the cardboard sign resting against his legs. Please see me. Not help me. Not spare change. Not hungry. Just see me. Something punched me in the chest. Maybe it was a memory of myself at the same age, running around Akron, wondering whether anybody actually cared about kids like us. Maybe it was guilt from knowing that despite everything I'd built, the world was still full of kids slipping through the cracks. Or maybe it was something deeper, some kind of silent pull I couldn't explain. Let's keep going, my driver said quietly. Used to this route, used to this routine. But I shook my head. Stop the car. He hesitated. LeBron, this isn't the best. I said stop. Before he could argue, I opened the door and stepped out onto the cold pavement. The air smelled like rain and exhaust fumes. A few people across the street recognized me and stared, but no one approached. I walked toward the boy slowly, not wanting to scare him. When he looked up, his eyes met mine with a kind of exhausted clarity I'll never forget. He didn't blink. He didn't flinch. It was as if he had been waiting for me long before I ever pulled up at that light. Hey, I said softly. You okay out here? He didn't answer at first. His eyes scanned my face like he wasn't sure if I was real or just another image from a screen. Then he looked down at his sign again, almost embarrassed. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough, tired, older than a child's should ever sound. I'm not asking for money, he said. That's not why I'm here. I nodded. All right, so why are you here? He lifted his head again and stared right into me, so deeply that I felt stripped of everything except my own humanity. No cameras, no NBA rings, no headlines, just a man and a boy in the cold. He swallowed hard, and then he asked me the question that froze me in place. If you could only save one kid from ending up like me, how would you choose? Time stopped. Noise disappeared. The world narrowed to the space between us. I didn't know what to say. I'd heard thousands of questions in my life about basketball, fame, money, decisions, foundations, programs, school systems, but never one that cut straight into the part of me that still remembered what fear tasted like when you're young and no one is coming to save you. I opened my mouth, closed it again, and just sat down next to him on the sidewalk. The concrete was freezing, but it didn't matter. I felt something shift inside me, something uncomfortable yet undeniably honest. What's your name? I finally asked. He hugged the backpack tighter. Eli. Well, Eli, that's a hard question. He nodded slowly as if he expected me to say that, but he didn't break eye contact. I just want to know, he whispered. Because grown-ups always say they want to help kids, but when there's too many of us, they pick favorites. And I always wonder, how do they choose who deserves a chance? The light turned green behind us. My driver waited patiently, but I didn't move. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not as LeBron James, the billionaire athlete, but as the kid I once was. The scared one, the lost one, the one who wondered that same question a long time ago. And I wasn't ready to walk away from that. I don't know how long we sat there in silence, me and Eli, side by side on that cracked sidewalk. Cars moved past us, some slowing down when their drivers recognized me, others speeding up like they were afraid of catching whatever it was that kept this boy on the street. The city felt loud and distant at the same time, like we were inside some invisible bubble where only his question existed. If you could only save one kid from ending up like me, how would you choose? I'd signed countless basketballs, taken thousands of photos, answered polite questions about giving back, stood on stages talking about opportunity and hope and second chances. But nothing had prepared me to answer that. I cleared my throat. You know, when I was a kid back in Akron, I felt like the world had already decided who mattered and who didn't. I didn't think anyone would ever choose me either. He glanced at me skeptical. Yeah, but you're LeBron James. And before I was LeBron James, I replied quietly, I was just a little boy who didn't know where life was going. I know what it feels like to be scared and invisible. He let that sit for a moment. His fingers moved slowly along the edge of the cardboard sign, tracing the letters like he'd written them 100 times. Did you ever sleep outside? He asked. I thought of the times we bounced from place to place, couch to couch, not knowing how long we could stay. The fear of instability, the emptiness of not belonging anywhere. It wasn't the same as what he was going through, but the feeling behind it. I remembered that too well. I didn't sleep on sidewalks like this, I admitted, but I slept not knowing what was coming tomorrow, and that does something to you. Eli took a small breath and stared straight ahead. Yeah. Tomorrow's just a rumor out here. His words hit me harder than he probably realized. I looked at him carefully. His cheeks were a little sunken in, his lips chapped, but his eyes were sharp. Too sharp for his age. That kind of sharpness only comes from watching too much pain, too early. Where's your family, Eli? I asked. He shrugged in that stiff, defensive way kids do when the truth hurts. My mom's somewhere. At least I hope she is. What happened? He hugged the backpack closer to his chest. We moved around a lot. Shelters, friends' houses. She tried, you know. But she got sick, then she got tired, then she just disappeared into the kind of tired that doesn't go away. There were drugs. There were guys. Then one day there just wasn't her anymore. I listened without interrupting, every word stacking on top of the last like bricks being laid between him and the rest of the world. You ever go to a shelter now? I asked gently. Yeah, he said. Sometimes. But they're crowded, loud. You never know who's going to steal your stuff or hit you just because they're angry at life. I'd rather be out here where I can at least choose which corner I'm scared on. There was no bitterness in his voice, only a flat resignation that felt heavier than anger. Any school? I asked. His jaw tightened. I used to go. I liked school. I was good at math. I liked when the teacher wrote problems on the board and everyone else gave up, but I could see the pattern. It made me feel like maybe I was smart enough to be something else. What changed? He tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to a memory only he could hear. Kids started asking why my clothes smelled weird, why my shoes didn't match, why I didn't have a dad at the parent nights. Teachers looked at me like I was a problem, not a person. Then we moved again. And again. At some point you get tired of showing up in new places where nobody plans to remember your name. So I just stopped going. His words were calm, but I could feel the ache underneath. It reminded me of those invisible waves life sends out, the ones people don't see but always feel. When you're young, you absorb the energy around you like a sponge. If the only thing you receive from the world is neglect, you start to believe neglect is what you deserve. You know, I said slowly, people talk about changing the world like it's this big thing that happens all at once, but sometimes the world is just one kid, one moment, one decision someone makes to not walk away. Eli smirked faintly. Yeah. But those moments don't pick kids like me very often. I looked at his sign again. Please see me. Why that? I asked. Why not ask for money? Food? A place to sleep? He thought about it for a second. Because money goes away, he said. Food goes away. Even a bed can go away when someone decides you don't belong anymore. But when someone really sees you, I don't know. It feels like it doesn't disappear so easily. It stays somewhere inside for a little longer. I stayed quiet. That was bigger than most adults ever allowed themselves to say out loud, let alone a boy sitting on a sidewalk. Do people see you? I asked. He laughed once, a short, dry sound. They see what they want to see. Some see a drug problem I don't have yet. Some see future trouble, some see a lost cause. Others see a sad story they can tell themselves at dinner to feel better about what they have. But me? He tapped his chest with his thumb. They don't really see me. He turned to face me again. You asked why I asked you that question. If I could only save one kid, I repeated. Yeah, he said. I see people on TV talking about how they help kids, but there are too many kids like me. So I always wonder, when there's not enough help to go around, how do they choose whose life matters enough to get saved? The weight of his question sat in my lungs like a stone. When I started my school in Akron, I began carefully. I wanted every kid there to feel like they were chosen, not because of their grades or talent, but just because they existed, and that was enough. And what about the kids outside your school? He asked, no hesitation. The ones who didn't fit the program? The ones who missed the cut? Were they just unlucky? He wasn't attacking me. He was asking the universe a question it had never properly answered for him. Still, I felt the blow land. I think about them more than you know, I said quietly. I think about the kids we can't reach. I think about whether what I do is enough. Some nights I wonder if what I've built is just a story that makes people feel good, while kids like you are still out here on the sidewalk. Eli studied my face, like he was checking to see if I was just saying the right thing or actually telling the truth. So what do you tell yourself, he asked, when the cameras are off? I looked down at my hands. They were the same hands that had held trophies, signed contracts, held my kids, hugged crying fans. Right now, they just looked like hands that weren't doing enough. I'd tell myself that I can't save everyone, I answered, forcing myself to be honest. But I can't let that stop me from saving someone. I tell myself that every time I help one kid truly change their life, the world becomes a little different. The pattern shifts, maybe not enough, maybe never enough, but still shifted. Eli nodded slowly, but I could tell he wasn't fully satisfied, and maybe he shouldn't be. Maybe none of us should be satisfied with the idea that a little bit is enough when kids are sleeping alone in the cold. I just don't want to be a number in somebody's speech, he murmured. Those words slid under my skin and stayed there. I remembered being young and hearing people talk about at-risk youth like we were statistics, not people. Like we were data points on someone else's report. No one wants to be a number. Everyone wants to be a name, a story worth remembering. My bad if this is too much, Eli said, suddenly self-conscious. You probably got somewhere to be. I looked at him, really looked. The ribs you could almost count under his shirt, the dirt under his nails, the way his eyes were too awake for someone who should be worried about homework, not survival. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, I said, at least for right now. He stared at me for a moment, then let out a shaky breath like part of him had been bracing for me to stand up and walk away at any second. You know what's funny? He said. Sometimes the people who have the most are the ones who look the least. They look at buildings, screens, numbers, but not faces. Do you know who I am, Eli? I asked, not out of ego, but curiosity. Of course I know who you are, he said, rolling his eyes slightly. I've watched you on TVs in store windows with the sound off. I've seen your name on billboards and sneakers and cereal boxes. I know you help kids. I know you say this line a lot about giving back. He paused, then added quietly, I just never thought your shadow would actually fall on my sidewalk. That line hit deeper than any arena chant ever could. For a few minutes, we just sat there, watching life move past us. A couple argued in a car nearby. A bus pulled up and emptied tired faces onto the street. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, a familiar soundtrack to a city still trying to figure itself out. You said you like math, I reminded him. Yeah, he said, shrugging. Numbers make sense. People don't. Maybe, I said. But behind every number, there's a story. Behind every homeless child statistic, there's an Eli. He looked at me like he wanted to believe that, but wasn't sure he could. What if there aren't enough people who care about stories like mine? He asked. I took a breath and felt a quiet truth rise to the surface. Care is like a chain reaction, I said. One person really caring can change someone. That person can go on to change someone else. You don't always see where it ends. But the energy you put out doesn't vanish. It just moves into new forms. He squinted at me. So you're saying if someone cares about me now, it could do something later? Yeah, I replied. Sometimes the biggest changes start when one person decides not to look away. He shrugged, like he wanted to dismiss it, but his eyes softened just a little. So, he said, if you had to answer my question, right now, how would you choose? I swallowed. This was the moment. I could dodge it with a nice-sounding line. I could say something about systems and structures and planning. Or I could answer him with the only truth that felt real in that moment. I would choose the kid right in front of me, I said quietly, because he's not a concept. He's not an idea. He's not a statistic. He's here, and I can't pretend I didn't see him. Eli's eyes glistened for a second and he blinked it away fast like tears weren't allowed out here. Just for tonight? He asked. The question wasn't sarcastic. It was scared. That's when the real conflict began, not between me and him, but inside of me. I could feel it clearly, the pull between what I could conveniently offer tonight and what this moment was really asking of me. It's easy to order food, hand someone a coat, sign a check. It's much harder to stay, to commit, to let their story intertwine with yours in a way that can't be cleaned up in a press release. A cold breeze swept down the street, and Eli shivered. I looked at his thin hoodie and then at the warm jacket I was wearing. No, I said, making a decision I knew would complicate my night and maybe my life. Not just for tonight. He looked at me, surprised. Hope flickered in his eyes, but it was fragile, like a match held too close to the wind. What does that mean? He asked cautiously. It means, I said slowly, knowing I was crossing an invisible line I'd drawn around my own comfort, that tonight is not going to be the end of this conversation. It's going to be the start of something. I don't know exactly what yet, but I'm not walking away pretending I didn't hear you. He stared at me, as if testing whether my words would hold long enough for him to trust them. You really mean that? He whispered. And in that moment, with the city's noise fading into the background and the weight of his question still resting on my shoulders, I realized that the next choice I made would either confirm everything he believed about people like me, or challenge it. I do, I said. I didn't know yet where that promise would lead. I didn't know what it would cost me, or how much it might change both of our lives. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't running on autopilot. I was fully present, and the boy who only wanted to be seen had just become impossible to unsee. Eli didn't speak right away. He just stared at me like he was waiting for the punchline, waiting for the moment I'd remember who I was, who he was, and step back into the world where kids like him don't get more than a passing glance from men like me. It hurt to realize how normal disappointment was to him, how practiced he was at expecting it. Before I could say anything else, my security finally stepped out of the SUV and approached carefully. LeBron, everything okay? one of them asked, scanning the street like something was about to jump out at us. Yeah, I said, still looking at Eli. Everything's fine. Eli lowered his eyes instantly, like he thought he was about to be told to move, to disappear, to stop wasting my time. That reaction alone made my chest tighten. It's all right, I told him softly. You're not in trouble. He nodded but didn't fully believe it. Kids like Eli learn early that trouble doesn't need to make sense to find them. I stood up slowly and extended a hand toward him. Come on, let's get you something warm to eat. He stared at my hand a long time before placing his in mine. It felt small, cold, and tense, like he was ready to pull away if this turned out to be a trick. As we walked toward the SUV, he hesitated beside the door. Are you sure? He asked. I mean, people like you don't pick up people like me. I opened the door wider. People like me forget who we were before life changed. Tonight I'm remembering. He swallowed hard, then climbed into the back seat, still gripping his backpack like someone might rip it away. I sat beside him while my driver pulled into traffic. Inside the car's warmth, the contrast was jarring. His whole body shook a little as the heat hit him. It wasn't just the cold leaving him, it was survival mode slowly unwinding. Where do you want to eat? I asked gently. He shrugged. Anywhere that doesn't kick me out. You're with me, I said. No one's kicking you out. We ended up at a small diner a few blocks away, the kind of place with peeling red booths, buzzing lights, and a waitress who looked like she'd been working doubles for 15 years. Eli followed me inside cautiously, eyes scanning the room like he expected someone to drag him back onto the street. When the waitress recognized me, she froze, then tried to hide it behind a professional smile. I leaned in and whispered, "Treat him like he's the important one tonight." She nodded, softened, and turned to him. "What can I get you, sweetheart?" Eli blinked, stunned by the kindness. His voice cracked when he asked, Can I get pancakes?" "You can get anything you want," I said. When the waitress walked away, Eli stared down at the table, tracing circles on the scratched surface. "You don't have to pretend to care," he said quietly. "I know how this works. You're gonna feed me, maybe give me some money, and then tomorrow I'll be right back where I was." His certainty hit hard, not because he was wrong, because he'd lived enough broken promises to accept them as truth. "That's not what this is," I said. He didn't look convinced. "Then what is it?" I took a breath. "It's me showing up. Not for a photo, not for a speech, not for a story, just for you." He looked up sharply. "Why?" I wanted a clean answer, something inspiring, something that sounded like a quote they'd put under a picture of me on Instagram. But all I had was honesty. "Because you asked me a question I couldn't walk away from." He held my gaze, testing every word. When the food arrived, he ate with small, careful bites at first, as if the plate might vanish if he allowed himself to enjoy it. Then hunger took over. Halfway through, he paused and said, "I haven't eaten a hot meal in 3 days." I looked down, ashamed, not of him, but of the world. After the food, he relaxed a little, enough to talk more freely. "You said earlier you can't save everyone," he said. "So why me?" "Because," I said slowly, "tonight, you're the kid right in front of me. And maybe the world changes one kid at a time." He shook his head. "That sounds nice, but nice doesn't keep people alive." "Then what does?" I asked. He leaned back, thinking. "Consistency. People who stay. People who don't disappear once the moment gets uncomfortable." His words hit deeper than he realized. Fame had built walls around my life, walls made of schedule, security, pressure, expectations. Walls that made it easy to forget that consistency mattered more than grand gestures. "You want to know something?" he asked suddenly. "Yeah. I don't think I'm asking for a lot. I'm not asking you to save the world or whatever. I just want someone to stay long enough to prove I'm worth staying for. That broke something inside me. Eli, I said, my voice lower. You are worth staying for. You say that now, he whispered. What do you need from me right now? I asked. He looked out the window, watching cars streak past, each one carrying someone with a destination, a home, a life. I need safety, he said. Okay. And someone to not forget me tomorrow. That was the line that shattered everything inside me. I felt the full gravity of his fear. The fear that being helped meant he would owe something he could never repay. The fear that people only showed up when it made them feel better. The fear that hope was a dangerous trick. I won't forget you, I said. But I need you to be honest with me. Are you running from something? Eli stared at the table for a long time before nodding. I ran away from the shelter. There are older kids there who... He stopped, swallowing hard. They hurt people. They take their stuff. Some adults look the other way. I thought if I stayed, I'd become someone I didn't want to be. Fear flickered in his eyes. A kind of fear I recognized too well. The fear of being shaped by circumstances you never chose. Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked gently. Who would listen? He asked. Every time I talk, adults look at me like I'm just noise. Not tonight, I said. Tonight you're not noise. He looked at me, trying to read whether I meant it. What now? He asked. That was the moment I felt the pull, the fork in the road. One path was easy. Give him a warm meal, drop him at a shelter, convince myself I'd done my part, and go back to my mansion telling myself I cared. The other path was messy, complicated, human. I chose messy. We're going to get you somewhere safe, I said. Not the same shelter. I know a place, good people, strict rules, real support. Kids your age get counseling, food, education, protection. And I'll check on you. Personally. He stared at me, silent. His eyes were swelling with tears he refused to let fall. You're not lying, he whispered. No, I said firmly. I'm not lying. For a moment, he didn't look like a homeless kid. He looked like what he truly was. A child who had been older than his years for too long. Before we left the diner, he grabbed his cardboard sign and stuffed it gently into his backpack like it was something precious. I realized then that "please see me" wasn't just a plea. It was a piece of his identity, the only way he had left to ask the world to treat him like a human being. Back in the car, as the city lights blurred across the windows, Eli spoke again, barely louder than a breath. You won't forget me tomorrow, right? And that question, more than the first one, became the pivot of the entire night. It was the question that forced me to confront the truth I'd been avoiding for years. Changing the world wasn't about grand gestures. It was about whether you could look into the eyes of one hurting kid and say, I'm not leaving. Eli, I said, tomorrow is just the beginning. He closed his eyes slowly, like those words allowed him to breathe for the first time all night. And I knew, deep in the place where real conviction lives, that whatever came next, I was already in it. Not as LeBron James, the celebrity, not as the billionaire, not as the headline, just as the man who finally decided to stay.